Having trouble picking the right receivers for your fantasy football team? Trust me, it's not easy as it seems, but we're going to try to break that down today. Wide receivers are one of the most crucial aspects of your roster when figuring out what you want to go forward with your fantasy football team, especially in specific leagues where 3 wide receivers are being put into the starting lineup at all times. Receiver becomes that more critical in order for you to win your league. Today, we're going to break down some of the values and top receivers, along with my personal choice for who will be the biggest bust in this coming season. Before we get started, simple quiz for you. Name this receiver. Receiver had 156 targets with 109 receptions, 1,152 receiving yards with 4 touchdowns. Think you know who it is? Wait till the end of the show and reveal who the answer is and see if you're right then. All right, guys, we're going to break it down. Here are some of my top 5. Number 5 is going to be Puka Nacua. Huge year coming off his rookie year. Yes, I know there was no Cooper Kupp, but I think he kind of takes that Cooper Kupp role and runs with it. Cooper Kupp, of course, is older in age. He may still be a red zone threat, but he's not going to put up the numbers like he did before. I think that role now shifts to Puka Nacua. Matt Stafford loves throwing to him. He seems to run great routes, and his after-the-catch ability is phenomenal. Look for Puka Nacua to really improve. Usually, wide receivers improve on their second year rather than digress. So this could be a huge year, and you could see a huge uptake from Puka Nacua coming in this coming season. He did hit some bumps towards the end of the year, having a couple of weeks where he fell out of the top 20. But altogether, his target share has been phenomenal. He looks like he's going to be great, and definitely one of those receivers you want to get your hands on early in these drafts. My number 4 receiver going into this fantasy football year is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He burst onto the scene last year. Now, a large part of why he was so great in fantasy football last year was the fact that he did have the 10 touchdowns. 10 touchdowns for a receiver is astronomical. Great stat to have. Take this into account. The prior 2 years, his first 2 years, he only had 11 touchdowns total entering last year. To get 10 pretty much doubles his career total is a huge year for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I project he'll be in the same kind of range where he gets to 1,500 yards. I think the way they utilize him in that offense is excellent, and I think he grows with Jared Goff in trying to capitalize on this time now for them to make a good playoff push. Now, the touchdown total may come down a bit. Hopefully, he stays in that 6 to 7 range, which is kind of what he did the year before last, and it should still make for an excellent fantasy football year. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going early in drafts. And listen, if you don't get one of the top 3 guys, you definitely want to grab Amon-Ra when you get a chance and simply say thank you. Now, I do have 3 guys above him, but Amon-Ra is at number 4, and I think he should have an excellent fantasy year. Now, before we get into it, we're going to do some of our value picks. My first value pick going late in drafts, he's going in the 9th round as far as average between all the platforms. Looks like Keon Coleman and the Buffalo Bills. I talked prior on the running backs about I love James Cook just because of the simple fact that there's not a ton of weapons. And just because of that fact, it could open a door for Keon Coleman to get some looks. Now, Curtis Samuel probably will be the number 1 guy on that roster. He probably get the majority of the targets with whatever offense or style they're trying to run. But Keon Coleman later in the year, probably that second half year, you can grab him up in that 9th round. That's a pretty good bet that later on in that year, he will make a push to being the number 1 guy. Next value pick, going to be a little bit shocker, and I think I might be reaching here, but I'm going to give him the opportunity, is Jameson Williams. Going currently in the 10th round in most drafts, Jameson Williams was a first-round pick, first-round talent. We knew he's got the burst and the down-the-field speed, but he simply hasn't hit any of these fantasy years. Remember, first year, he was pretty much recovering from his injury in college. The second year, he had the suspension. And listen, that team had already been rolling, and trying to integrate him into the system kind of seemed like a if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of situation. But hopefully this year, with the departure of Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams should step up into that number 2 role, and hopefully his production will go up. He is he is going in the 10th round, and he is a number 2 receiver. I think that's a pretty good mix at possible touchdowns and good productivity out of a number 2 receiver. Next one is Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson's always been at the top of that simply because of the PPR status. Now he's at home with Carolina and Bryce Young. How can that work? Bryce Young, at times, everybody is down on him. We looked a little lost last year. Hopefully he can bounce back. Listen, there was talent there. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been the number 1 pick. Deontay Johnson gives him that nice, easy target, similar to what Adam Thielen was last year. Now, Adam Thielen, of course, a little bit older, kind of ran out of steam towards the end of the year. But with a Deontay Johnson running those short, intermediate routes and collecting on PPR value, Deontay Johnson should be a good value pickup. He's currently going in the 8th round. My biggest one that I really, really like this year, and I think it may be a surprise to most of you, is Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think is going to be a phenomenal, phenomenal pickup. Maybe not the first half this year, but I think towards the second half of the year, he should definitely start seeing some production. If you've got him in Dynasty, great pickup. Give it a couple years because the Pittsburgh Steelers usually know how to draft great wide receivers. Came out of that Michigan Wolverine pack that won the national championship, so you didn't get to see a lot of his skills because he did not throw the ball. But wait till you see him in the Pittsburgh Steelers. This should be good. He's going in the 13th round. Could be a good value pickup and stash if you need him for later. Now let's get back to our top 5. And at number 3, I've got Jamar Chase. He gets his buddy Joe Burrow back. It should be exciting. As we saw last year, it didn't really pan out for Jamar Chase when Burrow was not in the lineup. The last 4 weeks that were played by the Cincinnati Bengals, Jamar Chase's best finish was wide receiver 35 on the week. Every other week was in the 50s. Jamar Chase can really benefit from Joe Burrow getting back, and that high-intensity, high-explosive offense that we're going to see should really get back to flying. Look for Jamar Chase to finish as a number 3 receiver. I really like him this year, barring any injuries to Joe Burrow or himself. This should be one that you want to grab as early as possible. I think he can have an explosive year with the possibility of finishing as a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. Number 2, you got to give it to the volume guy, CeeDee Lamb. Dak Prescott looking to make, I wouldn't say amends, but looking to make a staple as this season as a quarterback, as everybody's starting to say maybe he's not the guy. Look for him to hyper-target CeeDee Lamb as he did last year, and CeeDee Lamb to really explode. Now, getting in the end zone is going to be another thing for the Dallas Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb's touchdown total was amazing last year. He finishes with a career-high 12 touchdowns. Now, Jamar Chase had 181 targets last year, 135 receptions for 1,700 yards. 12 TDs is going to be hard to match up. He had a good year the year prior, finishing with 9, but that was on 30 less targets. I look for more of the same from the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott as he hyper-targets CeeDee Lamb and gets him involved any way he can in a football game. So look at CeeDee Lamb to easily finish in the top 3 this year in fantasy football. If he keeps the touchdown total up, he could finish as the wide receiver number 1. And before we get to our number 1 receiver in fantasy for this year, let's talk about 2 potential bust picks that are going early in drafts. There's 2 of them that I really think could be ones you really want to stay away from, and that one is Devontae Adams of the Las Vegas Raiders and Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson right now, I believe, is going as the 3rd receiver off the board. My question mark is in who's throwing them the football. It's not known who the starting quarterback will be all year in Las Vegas, and it's not known who's going to be the starting quarterback all year for the Minnesota Vikings. How this affects those 2 players and their fantasy point totals could be huge. As we know, it was Mr. Consistent with Kirk Cousins. He was going to get Justin Jefferson the football. You were going to have great weeks out of Justin Jefferson every single week. JJ was explosive, but can he do it with somebody else behind the wheel? It could be the rookie J.J. McCarthy, even though reports show that he's probably going to be a project they're going to wait down the line. So now you're looking at Sam Darnold, who listened last year with the 49ers as a backup quarterback. Maybe it was something he needed, but his prior 2 stops did not go well for him. I'm worried about these guys getting drafted so high. Now, I'm not saying that they're not going to be great productive receivers. What I'm saying is with their draft capital and their draft cost, do you really want to take one of these guys in the first and second round? Because that's where they're going. JJ is going in the first round and Devontae is going in the second. Do you really want to spend that much draft capital on guys you're not certain are going to be consistent on a weekly basis and do not have the huge upside as somebody like a Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, or Jamar Chase? I would be mindful on picking up either one of those guys. And even an honorable mention as a possible bust could be Stephon Diggs. You've got 2 receivers ranked in the top 20, him and Nico Collins. There's only so much ball that can go around. Stephon Diggs, getting up there in age, I believe may have lost a step, hence the reason Buffalo moved along from him. So look for Stephon Diggs probably not to be the dynamic and huge fantasy stud we've seen in the past. I believe he falls outside the top 20 in somewhere that 25 to 30 range. And now, the number 1 receiver on my draft board going into this fantasy football year, no other than Tyreek Hill, the cheetah. You got to love what this team has done as far as using him in the right way and getting him the football in space. I don't think that changes. I think that continues. And I believe that the Miami Dolphins will continue to use him as they have in the last couple of years. 171 targets last year, and the prior year that, 170. It looks like it's going to stay consistent. You're going to get the ball in your playmakers' hands. Look for Tyreek Hill to have another huge year. Now, does the touchdown total stay the same? Because it nearly doubled from the first year. Went from 7 to 13. I think it comes down a notch. I think it's a great year if he gets 10. So I believe it's somewhere in that 10 range as far as touchdowns, maybe 9. But I still believe he will end up on the year as the number 1 receiver in fantasy football, simply because of the talent and the speed. Nobody knows how to counteract this offense that well to stop Tyreek Hill from making plays. And the answer to today's trivia question is Michael Pittman. Congratulations to all those guys who got it correct. And listen, comment below on what you thought about this list that I made up and who do you think is going to be the top tier receivers in this year's fantasy season. So remember, guys, listen, don't forget about those value picks in Keon Coleman, Jamison Williams, Deontay Johnson, and, of course, Roman Wilson. And be careful of those bust picks. Remember, Devontae Adams, JJ, not sure I'm feeling it this year, and maybe it's one of these years that I just want to stay away from both of them. But anyways, guys, please like and subscribe to the channel for more sports content. We love bringing you every new content we can. And also check out our shorts for more trivia knowledge. And I'll see you in the next one.